Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Baron here. So today I'm going to ask you once again, what are your thoughts about War Thunder adding helicopters? I'm going to go over a couple of points for and against, and as well as my personal opinions on the matter. Now, in September of 2016, I uploaded a video in concert with the Leopard A1A1 announcement on the dev blog, and I asked if War Thunder should get helicopters. Now, the mission you're seeing right now is a user mission in War Thunder. There are helicopter assets in War Thunder. I don't think any of them fly. However, people have found them. People have used them in user missions like Rhea 2998. The link to that will be in the video description as well. I thought this was an interesting user mission because it was related to the Korean War, and it had some pretty cool looking helicopters. So I had to check it out. Also, later in this video, we're actually going to see helicopter gameplay from the game called Heliborn, which is a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun playing with it, but the only problem right now is player base is really, really low. But that being said, I really enjoy flying helicopters in that game. So let's start with helicopters in War Thunder. Now, one of the arguments is, and I think this one is just the most ridiculous that people bring up, is the devs said that there wouldn't be helicopters in War Thunder. So, you know, Baron, there's just gonna be no helicopters in War Thunder. I think that's one of the most ridiculous statements to say. What do you guys think? Because I've been in War Thunder for like 4 years now. And guess what they said at one point? There's not gonna be anti-tank guided missiles in War Thunder. They've also said there's gonna be big ships in War Thunder. Then they said there might not be any ships in War Thunder. Now they said we've got boats in War Thunder. We've got all kinds of stuff like that over the years because guess what? It's a game developer. Things are gonna change when you're talking about the constant development and improvement, and you know, adding things to a game over 4 years. Things will change. If you don't like change, you're living in the wrong universe because change is gonna happen. Now that's just kind of like a broad statement, and I'm digressing. But so when you think about it, that there wouldn't be ATGMs and that there would be big ships, and then at one point they even said there's not going to be ships, and then the whole April Fool's thing happened. I think you can throw that argument right out the window. Now, there's another argument out there that's also as ridiculous, especially in recent months and within the last, what, I'd say year or two of War Thunder development, but people are still throwing it around there. And that is, Baron, this is a World War II game. No, it's not. Other people have even said there were no helicopters in World War II. That's false. Now, we could get into the details of World War II helicopters. There are some compelling arguments saying that if you were to play World War II helicopters, there wouldn't be a lot to do. And that is a decent argument. But, so, if you're going to try to say that War Thunder is a World War II game, you're wrong at this time, at this day and age. We're into the 1960s. The Gepard, which is the new SPA, was fielded in the 1970s, guys. So, hey, how about no on the fact that War Thunder is a World War II game? Now, when you account for helicopters in general, you could say that World War II helicopters, you know, they were used for very light roles, spotting, scouting, transporting resources. You know, the Germans used them to resupply Alpine troops, things of that nature. You've got a compelling point. That is true. In the Korean War, helicopters started to work out, you know, and be used more often than not. Granted, a lot of times were, you know, medevacs and stuff like that. But the 1960s were when helicopters and helicopter warfare got particularly spicy. And that's where things got good. So, a lot of people could say, well, you can't start a tech tree in the world, you know, for helicopters. You can't just start it at tier 5. Well, here's a thought. It's just a novel thought. Why the hell not? What if for the first time you were to get a tech tree and work from the back like from, you know, the end forwards? You start with tier 5 and you work yourselves backwards, right? I mean, the game is moving so quickly into the Cold War. It's kind of, you know, I mean, like, think about it. M163, the Shilka, the Gepard, all of these vehicles, by the way, You may be saying, but Baron, those 3 vehicles that you mentioned would absolutely destroy helicopters. You're absolutely right. They would destroy helicopters if a helicopter's gonna fly straight in a big line, you know, high in the air. But guess what destroys those 3 vehicles? Tanks. You know what that equals? If you have tanks, SPA of that caliber, and then 1960s helicopters, you've got rock, paper, scissors, because what kills tanks really easily? Helicopters. Now, here's the thing. How many times have you played realistic battles for tanks, and you've been killed by a Focke-Wulf 190 or a P-47 with rockets? 60% of the time, it happens every time. I cannot tell you how many times I've been destroyed by planes using rockets, or even nowadays, like there's a big movement with a lot of the vehicles using high caliber ballistics-based weaponry, right? So let's go back real quick to World War II helicopters, because I just want to make a point real quick, and this kind of ties into my whole idea of let's implement helicopters but in reverse. The higher tiers, you know, tier 5s, and then work your way backwards, because you need a whole new game mechanic, I think, to support the tier 1s, if there would be any tier 1s, you know, the lower tiered helicopters. And this is just my thought. Feel free to pick it apart or say, hey, that's stupid, this is a World War II game. You can do that. You're allowed to do that. It's a free country and this is a free channel. But World War II helicopters wouldn't work. You're right and you're wrong. Currently, what's the point of a World War II helicopter? Nothing. There's not a whole lot. You can't, there's not too many weaponized World War II helicopters at all. So, now, if you were to say, oh, I don't know, maybe this game could adapt and develop and maybe they might do new things, which they've done over the course of the 4 years, then there would be a purpose. Look at the Focke-Wulf 189. It's a spotter aircraft. There's no spotting mechanics in the game, currently. Now look at another game, World of Tanks. Light tanks can't really do a whole lot. They're not very effective in the terms of like combat. However, spotting and getting assisted points from spotting other vehicles that your teammates then, you know, get kills, do damage on, it gives them purpose. There are people who devote their gaming experiences to spotting and playing light tanks. If there's a system involved whereby people are rewarded for spotting, they will spot. It's just that simple. Now, spotting mechanics could work in War Thunder. It's something I've talked about before. It would take some work, but it could be done, and it would add to the overall immersion of the game, which is really, I think, the direction that War Thunder should be working on now. We've had 4 years of this whole like grind, try to get to the top tiers, play those vehicles, and I think that everything needs to, you know, change can be good, adapting can be good. You've been doing the same thing for 4 years, more or less, which is just, oh, it's an update, we're gonna put in new things, right? Which is definitely one of the arguments we're gonna get into against helicopters a little bit later. So, I would say that put spotting mechanics, if you're going to bring in lower tiered helicopters, they would work fantastic for it. And you're like, oh, well, helicopters are going to get shot down really easily. I've played custom battles in War Thunder when I've streamed, and we've done high tier SPAA versus swordfish swarms. Now, yeah, I'd probably kill like 90 to 95% of pilots flying those swordfishes, because most of them are just going to do, I'm going to fly at high altitude and try to bomb this Gepard. You're gonna get shot down. There are other pilots who adapt. They do very well. They fly low, they fly contour to the ground, use trees, hills, all that kind of stuff, and they bomb the shit out of high tier SPA when there's multiple targets in the air. Granted, that's a custom battle, and it's a little bit different. You have to take that with a pound of salt, but do so, because it tastes pretty nice. So, that being said, it all depends on how you approach it, really. Like, are you gonna be silly, or are you actually going to use some tact in trying to kill stuff, right? And that's a swordfish, guys, not a helicopter. So here's another thing. Let's look at the weapon systems of helicopters, right? They've got machine guns, autocannons, rocket pods, guided missiles, and door gunners. All of those weapon systems are already in the game. You've got AI gunners for bombers and attack planes, dive bombers, all sorts of aircraft in War Thunder already use the basic level of AI for gunners, right? We have guided missiles, fly-by-wire missiles, where the player actually controls, to a certain extent, the trajectory, you know, of the missile. We also have rocket pods. We have an assortment of rockets. Everything from little rockets all the way up to Tiny Tims. And then we've got machine guns and autocannons galore, right? So, that's the thing. I think helicopters could work. If you're going to fly at altitude and expect to just, like, poop on people, you're going to get shot down. Like, tanks are armed with machine guns. You know, a lot of the Americans have those nice 50 cals sitting on the top. People can use their main guns to get spectacular shots on aircraft, and it happens commonly enough to where planes have to worry about that. And then people are saying, well, there's another argument. The maps are too small for helicopters. Have you ever flown out an aircraft, a plane, in a realistic tank battle? Dude, there's like 5% of the map where the actual tank battle happens when you're in a plane. There is so much other terrain to have aerial duels, and if you want to, you know, kind of skirt the battlefield, you can. Now, if you fly in close, you fly in low, you fly in slow, all of those tanks on the ground will be able to shoot at you, right? All the SPA as well. I mean, that's just like a silly argument to say that the maps are too small, because all you have to do is A, look at how planes and tanks already, they're dynamic in the game already, and then factor in the fact that, oh, what if, whoa, here's a novel idea. What if they made different maps? Look at War Thunder Boats just came out. They made new maps to account for those gameplay mechanics. Now, boats are also a reason, or that bring up an interesting counter argument as to not implementing helicopters, and we'll get into that. But so, what is the task of a helicopter? Currently, if you were to put helicopters in, I think the main task would be killing tanks, right? And like I said, how many times in an RB tank battle have you been killed by a P-47 or Focke-Wulf 190 flying in with rockets? Just to name those two specifically, because they're pretty common. The P-47 is very common tank killer in War Thunder ground forces. Now, helicopters are extremely maneuverable. They're very adaptable. They can do things planes cannot do. Fly at low altitude, hide behind trees, hills, pop up, fire rockets, dip back down, all those kinds of things. You can play to the terrain just like a tank would in a certain way, right? There's hold down for tanks. If you drive your tank out over over open terrain and you get shot and you die, that's your own damn fault. If you play hold down and you peek up, you take a shot, you peek back, you use your maneuverability, you play the tank to its strengths, you're going to do well. If you play a tank to its weaknesses, or you just go in full, Rambo mode, which I have done, and I've died many, many times, you're going to get wrecked, right? You play the vehicle how it should be played. You can't make an argument saying helicopters are going to get shot down when describing people playing them as they should not be played, right? So, and then there's the whole rock, paper, scissors, which would be tanks, SPA, and helicopters. Now, rock, paper, scissors, I don't know if you know this, guys, but it is the most balanced game maybe ever. Ever. Rock, paper, scissors, right? Lots of video games have adopted that whole idea of balance, and they've done so pretty well. StarCraft, to name, granted it's an RTS, but still, rock, paper, scissors, guys. Tanks, SPA, and helicopters. That is the rock, paper, scissors mechanic, right? So, in my personal opinion, some of the compelling arguments against implementing helicopters would be, don't put them in now. Gaijin already has as a laundry list, as long as, it's just so long of things that they need to fix already. They're also working on boats right now, and that is definitely in a state of development, and I would imagine right now it's not going to be the final state, so they've got enough work on their plate. That's a very compelling argument, but it also the caveat is, well, that's not to put helicopters in right now. They might not ever put helicopters. This is just me talking about it. So, another thing is, if helicopters are separate, for whatever reason, like say just helicopters are their own game mode and it's just helicopters, for balance or whatever, it would just further fragment the player base in War Thunder, and then it would affect things like BR balancing issues and queue times. That's definitely a compelling argument, and I think that's totally fair. And another decent argument is just kind of like, helicopters may be good, they may not be, but there's no time or place for it right now. You know, they've got to add other things like, I don't know, France and Italy, which I remember in my first couple months playing War Thunder, there was talk of adding France and Italy, and that's almost 4 years ago now. And, you know, and then working on like Japanese ground forces, which they're working on right now. They've got a lot of other things to add first. I can definitely see that as a very, very compelling argument. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, right now, I'm gonna have a Twitter poll just out of curiosity. I want numbers, because before I asked, put your thoughts, like, do you want it yes or no in the comments? Now I just want to hear like constructive criticism, arguments for and against in the comments, and then actually for like a voting process, I'm gonna have a Twitter vote. Link will be in the video description and the comments. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed the video and the discussion. It's a controversial topic, and there's definitely arguments for and against it. Obviously, you could probably tell by the way I was talking about it. I'd be curious to see it. I definitely would probably enjoy War Thunder helicopters, you know, but I wanted to open this up just like the other day where I was asking, hey guys, the developers have asked, you know, what you want to see in War Thunder boats, and I got your feedback, and you guys have been great with that. We've got over 630 comments with regards to, like, you know, constructive criticism and things to add, take out, things to change in boats, like what would make it better, basically, right? So now the question is, hey, what do you think of helicopters? I'm going to bring it up again because, I mean, a lot of the arguments people have been throwing out are just simply invalid, you know, and I want some better arguments for and against. Get a good dialogue going. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Baron. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that bell button, like I said, for the channel so that you guys are always made aware when a video does come out. And I'll see you guys in the next video.